Hey everyone, this is the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. I'm back doing another episode of Where Are They Now? And for those of you who hadn't heard the first episodes of this series, I am going to recap because to me, these are the most special episodes. As you know, I coach a lot of people. And of course, you've heard me coaching people live on this podcast with my Coaching with Kim episodes. And I have a ton of clients who I send off into the world after coaching them and even during. And it's just so amazing and rewarding when I hear countless success stories and read thousands of emails of previous clients updating me on how their life has improved and often how they find love. And here's the thing. I mean, success is within the person. Everybody has different journeys. Everyone has different goals. And to them, that's their success. You know, some people, their success is they end up with a boyfriend. Some success is that they finally learn how to date. But whatever that is, it's so rewarding. And I do these episodes to inspire and motivate you by hearing what happens to people after I work with them, whether that is on a podcast or working with them over time as clients. And I have a really special guest for you today because this is someone near and dear to me that I've been working for a while with, and I feel very close to her. I hope you listen to these and get inspired by people's successes and know that the success can happen to you too, even during quarantine. And it all starts with a call. So today, as I alluded to, I'm bringing on a very special woman who I actually started our journey together 2 years ago. And it started because she heard me on a podcast and we hopped on a phone together because something I said resonated with her. And that's where it all happened. You know, she'd been then following me, listening to my podcast, and she decided to invest in coaching with me to work on her self-confidence. And it was real, you know, she was realizing that it was preventing her from attracting the right guy. At the time when we hopped on the call together, I remember this. She said she was having a hard time setting boundaries. She tended to overshare her, and she was becoming kind of insecure around all that. She just had such a strong need and desire to have a boyfriend that it was almost overriding her ability to determine what the right boyfriend for her was. And she was looking for that kind of external validation. And that definitely was affecting her in the selection process. And here's the thing, like, she had been in therapy, right? So she had done some work prior to working together, but she needed something more that would help her take action and practice the dating skills that she had never learned. And, I'll have her share more about herself when she's on, but it's been an amazing journey working together and incredible to see her grow and come into this confident woman I know today. And because she did the work, she attracted this great new guy in COVID land, people, into her life, different than she has ever experienced before. She said, feels really, really different. And I know that's true because I've been with her a while. But I'll have her tell the rest. So I am going to bring her on now. Jane, are you there?
Yes, Kim.
Hello.
Thank you for that great introduction.
Oh my God. No, I almost got chills as I was introducing you because, we've been through a lot together, and I've seen kind of like a lot of twists and turns and journey. And that's why this episode I think is really special too, because I want people to hear how you persevered, how you didn't give up, because it's been a long road and everybody's road is different, but you were striving for something better. And that's the thing, like, you didn't settle, and because of that, you just kept persevering and working, and here you are. So, all right. Well, why don't we start out, like, just introduce yourself, like who you are, what you do, where you live, and we can kind of get into what life was like way back when, 2 years ago.
So my name is Jane, and I'm a physician, and I live in upstate New York. Around the time that I started working with you, Kim, I was just kind of completing my training and about to start my career as an attending, which basically means that I don't have anybody over my shoulder telling me how to treat my patients. So it was a pretty stressful time. But I think at that point, because I had worked so hard, becoming a doctor and finishing my training and residency and fellowship, I wanted to focus on my personal life at that point. So I was very highly motivated by the time I started talking to you.
Yeah, I remember that too. It's so
Yeah.
wild to think about. Like that was your life back then. And I know
Yes.
like a lot of people I've worked with, they've dedicated so much time on their career. Maybe they've had a few relationships here and there, but I think that's what was missing for you. Is like you didn't even have a lot of experience dating and really paying attention to that.
Right. And I was dating the wrong guys for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what was happening back then?
I think I was, dating guys who were a little bit more definitely emotionally unavailable.
Mm.
Things were more of a mystery, or I felt I was I was never sure of what was going on. Like I didn't have a sense of safety in the relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I was listening to, you were a guest on a podcast and you were talking about the different dating archetypes. And I resonated with the narcissist magnet.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of people. Do you know actually that episode that you heard inspired my new audio course? This may be why you suck at dating, and I go through all the archetypes. It's a whole course now.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is interested, as you're listening to Jane, you definitely check that out because yeah. So what resonated with you about that?
I just remember thinking that's totally me. And then you mentioned that you do coaching. So I said, I got to talk to this woman. So I think I contacted you after that. And then we had our first phone call. And I remember you totally touched me on our phone call. I remember crying on the phone with you because, yeah, whatever you said just made me just melt. And I felt a sense of relief as well because, at that point I was just so focused on getting a boyfriend. And then you're like, well, you don't have to get a boyfriend, just focus on dating. And then that was such a sense of relief, like, oh, I can relax and just focus on like the baby steps, and figure out what I'm doing wrong from the start.
Yeah, I remember that too. And I think we even talked about, and this was, I think, part of the journey is that there
Mm-hmm.
was so much worry and anxiety,
Yes.
that you had around that and other things in general that you were getting so ahead of yourself. And then that also caused frustration that you were losing the moment. You were losing, just really connecting with guys. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. I think that I would kind of skip over the dating process, or I didn't enjoy the dating
Mm-hmm.
process. So I'd want to go straight into a relationship. And then, 6 months into being in a relationship with someone, I would think to myself, why am I with this person? I don't, like, I just didn't feel like they were right for me. And I didn't understand like how I had gotten to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
I think, as a young woman, especially where I live, people tend to get married a little bit earlier. And so you do feel kind of more pressure to get in that relationship. And so I think I was definitely more focused on the outcome than the process.
That's really important. Yes, I do
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. And I think that was just a theme, like
Mm-hmm.
you were kind of just numbing out and going
Right.
out and,
Exactly.
just hoping to land that boyfriend and, kind of join the masses around you of
Right.
couplehood, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what were some of the things that you recognized also that you were doing to attract the narcissist? Do you remember that?
I think not expressing my needs,
Mm-hmm.
not sharing enough of myself on dates, like being the good
Yes.
audience. Yeah.
Yes. No, that's really important because I think this is
Yeah.
a really common thing that a lot of, especially women struggle with, but men do too. And here's the thing too, is that when you're riddled with anxiety and you're getting attached to the outcome and you're focused on the other person, you were not at all focused on yourself. And I think
Right.
that's
Right.
where it became really hard with your self-esteem and your self-confidence, because you're like, why I'm just doing all this stuff and like nothing's working, and it just was feeling all bad.
Right. I think I was out of touch with my own emotions and
Right.
not sure how I felt about somebody on a date because I was so focused on, I would probably interrogate them, but not, and like they would do all the talking, and then you know, they didn't get to know me. And then I wasn't really paying attention to how I was feeling on the date itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then that's why you had kind of attracted these guys who were all about them and the
Right.
takers, versus
Mm-hmm.
the givers. And so, because you're such a, I mean, that was the other thing, and that I feel like we're talking about is you're such a giver. And I mean, look what you do for a living as well.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
mean, you're such a caring person. And I
Thank you.
think, no, you are. And I think with that, you do sometimes lose yourself. And then that gets frustrating because there's a cycle that happens with that, because no one gives back to you, but you're not allowing for that to happen.
Right. Right.
So yeah, no, that's really important. And so what happened then, with the oversharing with that? Because I know you've mentioned that before, and it's still something I know that you're looking at. But what would happen on dates with that?
I think, I think I was doing it to, like, I was trying to be vulnerable, but I was doing it in the wrong way.
Oh, okay, that's a good distinction. Like, can you give an example?
I'm trying to think, maybe just being too forthcoming with, you know, not that there's anything wrong with being in therapy or whatever, but that's a very
Mm-hmm.
personal thing. And maybe making sure that the guy has earned the right to that information.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a
Right.
perfect example, because it was, and the reason why I bring it up is that's the other kind of side of the pendulum, right? Because like on one hand, you weren't sharing enough because you kept like deflecting and numbing out and focusing on
Mm-hmm.
them, and then you tried to open up and be vulnerable, but then it maybe wasn't the appropriate amount, or the pacing was off, or it was too much too soon, that kind of thing. And so, because I seen like in your growth how you've recalibrated that and kind of come to the middle where how to pace things out, and the reciprocity, and it should
Right.
be a dance more where you're sharing and listening and sharing and listening, and I know that's been part of the journey.
Right. And I think when I talked to you, that you showed me that being vulnerable doesn't have to be, your sad stories or getting super emotional on a first date, that you can just share what you're excited about, like even the appetizer,
Yes,
just something that shows
yes,
your personality. So I
yes.
worked on that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, have you worked on that? And you become
Yeah.
like, honestly, like a model for that. And I'll actually share something as we get into like, the things that you learn. Because I want to, so, I mean, obviously you were dealing with a lot of obstacles and challenges that you were having. So what were some of the things that you learned when we were coaching together? Like what worked for you? How did you get rid of some of those old patterns?
I remember one thing we worked on was like becoming more feminine. I think
Yeah.
you mentioned that working, as a physician, it's definitely a male dominated profession. So you kind of adapt, and, you know, I've sort of had to develop more masculine energy at my job. So you sort of got me to get in touch with my more feminine receiving side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I started first with more like the outside, my clothes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I like I was the one who would rush to a date after work. Like I'd be getting ready in the locker room at work for my date.
Yeah.
And I'd be wearing a blazer on my date, you know? So
Oh,
I had all
right.
this carrying this stress from the day. And then I'm, wearing more like pants and a blazer. And I just, not that you can't be sexy in that outfit, but it just, you embody more feminine, I think, at least for me, when I'm wearing more dresses and skirts. And so I just remember my wardrobe has definitely changed since I started working with you, and definitely more feminine pieces, and you kind of just feel more flirty and fun.
Yep.
So that's one thing. And
Definitely.
then,
Wait, let me just tell
oh,
all
sorry.
you listening, because this woman here is the hottest number you've ever seen. And I just remember I just remember looking at your, previous pictures and like, well, you have this amazing body. You're like drop dead gorgeous, and you're hiding in these like suits and blazers. And I remember like you not just even realizing that. And then when you sent me back some of the pictures of like you in those tight dresses and wearing red lipstick, and I still have a vision in my head of some of the after pictures when you show me, and it was like the light bulb went out, and then you started really like enjoying it. So that was fun to watch.
And yeah, just the quality of my pictures. Like I had on my profile pictures of me in coats, and you just couldn't really see me. I had a lot of pictures with other people because I was uncomfortable having my photo taken just me by myself. So I worked on getting not just my clothes, but like getting better pictures. And I think where you can see me.
Yes.
So that made quite a difference. And actually, I think I started paying more attention to men's photos. Were they trying to kind of hide themselves in their photos? So
Yep.
I started looking more for the guys who you could really see them and they seem more confident. Because it does show confidence if you're not like hiding under a coat and wearing a hat and sunglasses.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And then, so yeah, I remember then you started like dating. What else were you learning along the way? And even some of the internal shifts that started happening?
Setting boundaries was a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like if it, in the past, I think I would try to bend my schedule for a guy, but now I was more doing what was better for me. Like if a certain time didn't work well for me, I was more open about saying, no, that doesn't work for me. Can we do a different day? And yeah, not being as available. And I guess I thought guys would lose interest, but it didn't really, that didn't happen.
No, it did not.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. And what else? Other things?
Just getting better at flirting in general. That was a big thing.
I was hoping you would say that, because this is what I wanted to mention before, is that, do you know, I don't even think you know this, that because Jane has gotten so good at it, you start now sending me your text messages, back and forth, and you're like, hey, Kim, can you take a look at it? And, over the course of time, it just kept getting better, better, better. And now you are a role model for so many women. I don't know if you even realize that, because I have shown examples of your text messages without, showing your name, obviously.
Right.
And saying, this is what you should do, what to do. And then I show other ones of what not to do. And people are like, who is that woman? She's so good at it. How did she get that confident with the men? Yeah. So that, I just want to really highlight that. And I think that part of it was you kind of coming into your own and having that confidence, not really worrying about, what the guys thought. You just went for it.
Yeah, I think my attitude before I met you was using the app to like meet a guy. I was like more serious and trying to get to that first date and meet up, and like I wouldn't enjoy the process. I'd be like, oh, why isn't this guy asking me out? But now my attitude was like, I would talk to a guy for 3 weeks before we would meet up, and I would just enjoy the conversation and just enjoy flirting and not
huge.
not worry about like what's going to happen next. And it did make online dating more fun, even though it's definitely challenging and there were definitely frustrating times.
Mm-hmm.
But just trying to enjoy the process makes it more bearable.
Do you feel like that also inherently helped you with your anxiety around?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love for you to talk about that a little because I think, that was just a tool that we used, right? Just like practicing dating up a storm. But then I think the outcome of how it bleeded into other aspects of your life, I think that's important.
Yes. I think, like I said, before I was always worried about how, when's the guy going to ask me out or
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
what, but then I just sort of saw dating as practice and just said, well, I'll just practice these techniques. If he doesn't ask me out, then, oh, well, I'll move on. Like there's plenty of other options online. And yeah, so I didn't have a lot of anxiety over one guy. Like I do think it's important for women to keep their options open in the beginning. And I think that was a big thing that helped me a lot too.
Yeah, and you just said something really important that relates to your confidence and you listening as well, is that you said, well, there's plenty of other guys. Like that's huge. I think
Right, right.
before when I met you, there was more of this like scarcity mindset is
Yes,
like,
yes.
will you be my boyfriend? Okay. Will you be my boyfriend? Okay, I'll do it, like, cause you were thinking, well, maybe there's not a lot of options out there. So you would just kind of maybe
Right.
focus on somebody that's not even good for you. And the light bulb that went out is what you just said. I mean, you even said it, I think, under your breath, but to me, I wanted to punch that out because that shows me how much more confident you are. It's like, look, I know who I am, and there's plenty of fish in the sea and guys out there for me that I don't need to take the crumbs. Like I deserve the
Right.
cake. And that's what I loved, like seeing you kind of get into that space, that energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then what about in terms of, I would love for you to speak a little bit about then the guys that you started attracting, because that also kept improving. And I know, I mean, we've been through a lot of different scenarios and things along the way, but maybe talk about that a little bit.
I definitely think I started being more perceptive about the types of guys I was attracting, like after listening to your
Mhm.
podcast about the different archetypes and recognizing, like, I think probably at first I still was attracting narcissists, but I was
Yeah.
quicker to recognize who they were or like what they were. Um, so, because I think in dating, you're going to meet all types and it's just who you choose to invest in. So I think as I became more aware, I was still maybe at first attracting narcissists, but like knowing not to invest in them. And then recognizing the good guys. Because I was definitely meeting better quality guys. But sometimes it's hard because I wasn't always attracted to them. Um,
Mhm.
and I started meeting guys who were more receptive to me expressing myself. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I totally remember that too. Like when you
yeah,
started noticing that. No, and that was the first step that I saw is that you had this awareness,
right, right.
and that's the first step to change is even though you may still be doing these patterns, all of a sudden it's like you have a pair of glasses on where you're seeing
Right.
things now for the first time, whereas before you didn't. So that was crucial.
Another thing that was helpful too is when you introduced me to attachment theory,
Mm.
and recognizing that I did have more of an anxious attachment style or anxious attachment tendencies.
Hmm.
So learning about that style and how we do well with people who are more secure, um, who are more, maybe even like anxious like us, but not with the avoidance, which I definitely was more attracted to the avoidance prior to working with you.
Hmm.
Uh, and now knowing that I need someone who's more consistent, that's what's going to make me feel more secure and be happier in a relationship.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And it took work and it took,
Yeah.
time. And that's what I wanted to say. What I really admire about you, Jane, is that, there have been plenty of times that you've fallen down in the
Oh, for
boxing
sure.
rink. Like, I don't want people to think that it's always like, and I said this to you before, like unicorns and rainbows and everything's just perfect, but it's the times that you fall down is when you learn the most. I always say, I, I welcome failures, or I don't even see them as
Mm-hmm.
failures, quite honestly, or rejections. I see it
Mm-hmm.
as experience. And I think with each experience, you've gotten a gift of some way or shape
Right.
or form.
Right.
And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. Like, how did you get up from the box, from in the boxing rink when things were bad? Because you've had some low moments and, where you wanted to give up. How did you persevere?
I think something I've learned along the way is that, because I did, in working with you, I was in a relationship and that
Mm-hmm.
did not work out and I was devastated.
Yeah.
But I think what helped me getting through it is realizing that, he may have loved me and I may have loved him, but that doesn't mean we're soulmates. And it's
Mm.
not necessarily anyone's fault. Um, and, because I think at first I thought, well, you know, the whole relationship was a failure. Like I wasted my time. But
Mm-hmm.
then really, instead of having that attitude, looking at it and saying, well, we loved each other. We weren't a match. It didn't work out. But you always told me to remember the gifts I got out of that relationship.
Yeah.
And that was very helpful in moving on.
Yeah. And time heals so much too. And I
Right.
think it's
Right.
like what you did with that time was really crucial. You kept, coaching together, you got help in other ways, like
Mm-hmm.
you didn't just lie down
Right.
basically. And I think that's really important because after you did the work and you got into this relationship, a lot of people, if it broke up, would feel defeated. It's like, well, look, I tried this and look, it still didn't work. But that wasn't the case. You kept improving with each relationship. And I think that's why you got to where you are today.
Yes. I think dating is like target practice. With each relationship, you'll get
Hmm.
closer to your bullseye. Um, and so definitely like that relationship felt different than my previous ones. But still I have, he wasn't the right guy for me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. The
Mm-hmm.
target and the bullets. It's so true. Oh, well, let's talk about where you are today, my dear, because it's
Okay.
super exciting.
Yes.
So now that you're kind of through the darker tunnel and you're, and obviously there's still like a long path for everybody. Like I'm still going down my path. You'll still go down yours, but you're definitely in a lighter path right now. And it's really exciting. How do you feel right now? Like, where are you at with your confidence? Let's talk about just you personally. And then I want to hear about this new guy. It's so exciting.
Okay. I feel way more confident than I was 2 years ago.
Oh
Like
my
way,
God. You
way.
are, yeah. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, where were you then and where are you now?
I don't know where I was then. Maybe like, I mean, it depends on the context. Like at work, I was more confident, but like in dating,
Dating.
maybe a 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Now I'd say um, I'm probably like a 10 when it comes to dating, but not the new journey. I guess now is being in a more serious relationship.
Relationship. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's somewhat uncharted territory for me.
Which is why we're going to continue together. And I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, you definitely just, like honestly, you could coach people right now. I'm not
Oh,
kidding. Like you could coach people how to do these beginning stages now because you've been through it all, and you really you cracked the code. Like you got it down. You know, another thing that you hadn't mentioned that I really recognized in you too is, remember, we worked on your body language too in the
mhm.
beginning.
Yeah,
You know, we did the Zoom call where we, you
right,
know, kind of worked on the first impressions and some of the body language stuff because you were so serious and in your masculine at work, you know, just kind of
right.
looking at that feminine communication, even with your body language. So that's what I'm saying. Like there's been shifts both inside and out, and it's awesome. So, okay. So you're way more confident. What else?
Just happier, I think, too.
Oh,
Just having more fun.
yes.
Like when you mentioned being at work, and like I noticed I'm having more fun at work just because I'm more expressive.
Yeah.
I'm connecting with my patients
Mm-hmm.
in a better way. So like just trying having more fun at work, um, and in general.
Yes. And your friendships too, I've seen
Yes,
blossom.
yes, yes. I feel much closer to my friends now than I ever have.
Because that was
Um,
another thing too that I remember we were going through together. I mean, there's been ups and downs, you know, with
right,
friendships,
right,
and that all coincided with things you were struggling with in general. And as you started improving, so did your relationships in every aspect. So that was awesome too to see. I
right.
know, like, and it was so touching to get your email. So you should see how cute they are together. You sent me a picture of this new guy with this beautiful note of how you're feeling. So let's talk about the guy and how is he different? Like what's going on?
Oh my God, he's so cute. Like, oh,
He is cute. Yeah.
he, well, so I'm not to go into too many details. Basically, if COVID didn't happen, we never would have met. Which is,
Oh,
which
see,
is,
this is great. Yeah, talk about that.
yeah. Just because he is working remotely, so he moved back to his hometown, which is where I live. Um, Otherwise, if COVID didn't happen, he'd be out west. So that was one thing. Basically, that's like the one silver lining of COVID for me is that I've met Mike. Um, so and
Oh.
and you know dating has been a little bit easier because I am in New York State. So you know our restaurants have been open.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit easier. I mean, I definitely was doing the Zoom dates in the beginning, but um,
Well,
you know
you
we
know, actually, I want you to pause there with the whole like beginning stages, you know, when you were doing the
okay.
Zoom dates and because you had been working a lot on connecting. Remember, we've been doing a lot of
Yes,
like try to do more emotionally connecting and flirting in
right.
the beginning and seeing who earns the right to go out and all that stuff. So, what was it like with him? Like how did it go?
Well, actually, we didn't have a Zoom date initially.
Oh, you didn't.
Um,
Ah, okay.
no, which is unusual. He was like the
Mm-hmm.
first. He because that's what I was doing. I was doing Zoom dates for every guy to see if I wanted to meet them in person. But I don't know, for some reason, maybe his profile was really nice. I don't know. He was like, we matched on a Friday, texted on Saturday, and then met on Sunday. Like it was very quick.
Ah, okay,
Um,
okay.
and yeah, he super liked me.
What's there
um,
not to like, my dear?
um, no, I mean, that's a part of a thing on the app.
Yeah, the super liked.
Oh,
Of
yeah,
course, you're
yeah.
super
Okay.
liked. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So so we just had a great first. We just went for coffee, and it went for 3 hours.
mm-hmm.
And I knew I could tell he liked me and wanted to see me again because he had made references to like going. He wants to explore his hometown again after being away for a while. So he was mentioning restaurants that he thought we should go together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember feeling confident enough to like, because I had to be somewhere, so I had to end the date. So I just was like, okay, all right. So when are we going to meet again? Which I never would have done years ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I would have been like,
Aw.
I would have wanted to test the guy to see like, okay, well, how much does he like me? Where
Mm.
where now I'm more like, okay, he likes me. I don't have to like, test
Get
him.
validated. Yeah,
Right, right.
exactly.
So
Great.
anyway, so we made plans, and then an hour after we parted, he sent me a text message with the reservations for our second date.
Oh my gosh.
So I knew he was special then. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I remember like telling my girlfriends, and they're like, oh my God, you found a man.
Well, tell me about the emotional connection though with him, because you and I talked a little bit about that. Like you
Yeah.
really felt a strong connection.
Yeah. He's very expressive of his feelings. Um,
Hmm.
and I feel very safe with him to express mine.
That's
Like
huge.
I remember, after our second, oh yeah, on our second date, I had said to him, with COVID and everything, I want to hold off on getting physical. I think we should wait before we kiss and everything like that. And he was totally cool with that. He's like, oh, I think that makes you more attractive.
Mm-hmm.
So he was into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, um, and I remember we were making plans for our third date, and, um, like he was making plans to see me twice the following week, but I just remember thinking like, that's like too much for me with my schedule.
Uh-huh.
And the old me would have been like, oh, I want him to like me. Like
Mhm.
I'll be exhausted, whatever. I don't care. But I just said to him, I was like, you know what? I really do want to see you, but that, that one day does not work for me. I need like a day just to rest and recover from, because I was working over the weekend. And the old me maybe wouldn't have done that, or I would have made up an excuse like why I couldn't.
Yep.
I wouldn't have just been like honest, like, oh, I just need a break and just to have a night to relax by myself. Um, so, and
Beautiful.
yeah, and he was very responsive to that and said, okay, sounds, like you work really hard with your job. I don't blame you for needing a rest.
Bam.
Um,
See, wait, you
yeah.
listening to her, by the way, if you haven't picked this up already, that was a boundary that she set,
Yeah.
like AKA boundary setting. Like it
Right. Right.
shows up like that in the beginning stages where you're not making up excuses. You're not kowtowing to his needs. You're not like worrying about whether or not they'll like you. It's about
Mm-hmm.
doing what you want, and who really respects that, who, showing up and expressing how you feel and what you would prefer, and who honors that. Like that's what I'm saying, is that it isn't just your guy, this new guy, it's you're attracting that now
Mm-hmm.
because
Right.
you're
Right.
different.
Mm-hmm.
So well, this is so great. Are there any other things that you wanted to share about just what's different about this relationship?
It, it just feels, it's very light and it's very
Uh-huh.
fun.
Yeah.
We have a lot of
Yeah.
fun together. Um,
Oh.
and, I think we have very similar personalities. So I think
Mhm.
that helps. Like he's type A, I'm type A. He is very giving and caring, like very attentive to me, um, which I love. And, we were dating for maybe 4 weeks or 5 weeks when it was my birthday. And
Mhm.
he like hit it out of the park with my birthday. Like he just made me feel so special.
Oh, I know you said that in the email. And
Yeah.
to me that's also a big shift for you, because I just remember you have always been the one that gives amazing gifts, and you're always like
Yeah.
so generous, and you always know what people like, and you never felt like you got that back necessarily with these guys. And so the fact that he knows you, that he sees you, that he understands you, that he has the same love language as you is just
Mm-hmm.
huge. I mean, again, like you just kind of attracted this new energy because of where you're at. So, Jane, this is awesome. And it's really inspiring me. And I think that no matter what happens with this, right? Because I know it's a newer relationship. I wanted to
Right.
have you come on because of your journey, and, that how the hard work has paid off, because it's only going to keep getting better from here, no matter what. And I know that.
Right. And I just wanted to add to, when we were talking about, I forgot, like getting frustrated with getting kind of knocked down by online dating. I have some girlfriends who will say, like, I'll tell them a story about some guy I'm talking to, and they'll be like, "Oh, men suck, men suck," and that actually kind of frustrates me because I think you get what you put out, and so that's something that, like, I'll remind my girlfriends. I'm like, well, I try not to say that, because if you have that attitude, then you're only going to attract the guys that suck.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
See how she could be a coach now? Like, you are awesome. Yeah, it is. It's so true. And I think especially that's why this story is really inspiring, especially during COVID. People have been giving up and getting really negative.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because when COVID first hit, I remember thinking to myself, oh, well, I guess I'm just not going to date for a year. I guess I'll just work on myself for a year. And I would even email you about, like, well, what if I just go off the apps and just work on myself? And then you had mentioned that's still working on your dating life. And I even think before I met Mike, I was really frustrated, and you were like, oh, maybe you should take a break from the apps. And instead of taking a break, I just joined Tinder. So,
well, no matter what you do, like, anytime you're burnt out, you got to do something to disrupt a pattern. You know, I call it pattern disruption. And so whether it's getting off an app or trying a new app like you did, that's totally cool too. Like, anything to get out of that just negative state. And by doing that in action works. So no, it was great that, you just did something different, and you needed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
Right. So I just wanted to let all the people out there who are frustrated with online dating that it is frustrating, but you just have to be patient and do the work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, along those lines, what would you, in this, I guess we'll end here, like, what would you say to people who are kind of on the fence? Maybe they're thinking about coaching, or they're thinking about working on this part of their life, but they're not sure. They're scared. They think maybe, oh, well, I'll just wait.
It is scary. Like, you've had me do things that are definitely made me feel uncomfortable at first. But the rewards are definitely worth it. Because I think, like, even the setting boundaries, I always assumed, like, oh, if I set this boundary, like, people are going to react negatively. And that was my mindset. I always would assume the worst. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very grateful for the coaching. And I definitely feel like it's definitely changed me and helped me attract this wonderful guy that I am seeing now. And I guess if they're unsure, maybe they should be listening to more of your podcasts, and definitely do a call with you, because that sold me. Like, we had I think a half an hour conversation, and I knew, I was like, okay, this woman can help me.
And I'm so glad you did. And I know it's hard to sometimes put a value into your happiness, especially when you're in a state of unhappiness, right? And it's like, well, I'll do other things that are just more comfortable, but that isn't going to solicit the change. It's only the discomfort that causes that change, because it's new. It makes sense that this is all different. So, Jane, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to see where this all unfolds. And I know we're going to be, in some way, shape, or form in contact for a long time after this too. So thanks so much.
Yes.
It's really special having you on.
Yes. Thank you, Kim.
All right. So thanks for joining me today. You listening is, of course, have been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kimmy Seltzer. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And make sure you go to my site, as always, kimmyseltzer.com, to see more ways I can help you learn how to date and find love. If you want to learn, hop on a call with me. Like Jane was saying, it's just a phone call, right? Like, just get on. It's 30 minutes, but you never know that 30 minutes could change the course of your entire life, like it did for Jane. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next star in my Where Are They Now episodes to talk about your successes. And stay tuned until next week with more tips on how to feel and look fabulous every day.